Can people hear me? There we go. Good morning, Jalasi, and welcome to Jabokto, Halifax. And thank you for joining us here to commemorate Emancipation Day. I would like to begin by acknowledging that Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kmaq, the traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. I would also like to acknowledge the peace and friendship treaties which were signed between the Mi'kmaq people and the British Crown first in 1725. These treaties are unique as they did not involve the surrender of lands, but rather were agreements of peace, friendship, and support amongst one another. Historically, a land acknowledgement is a traditional practice shared amongst Indigenous groups to recognize the land we are visiting. It was a way to show our gratitude when visiting another group's territory, as well as a way to share where we come from. A land acknowledgement marks a small but important step in the process of reconciliation and building positive relationships with Indigenous people. By making a land acknowledgement, you are taking part in an act of reconciliation, honoring the land and Indigenous presence which dates back over 13,000 years. We honor the Mi'kmaq people as the stewards of the land and acknowledge the enduring impacts of colonization on the Indigenous community today. We also recognize the deep bonds formed between the Mi'kmaq community and African Nova Scotian community through mutual support and shared struggles for justice and recognition. The relationship between the Mi'kmaq and African Nova Scotian communities is one of a shared history and solidarity. Both communities have faced the impacts of systemic racism, colonization, and displacement. Despite these challenges, they have demonstrated remarkable resilience and have contributed immensely to the diverse cultural and social fabric of Nova Scotia. On Emancipation Day, we reflect on the legacy of slavery in Canada, the resilience and contributions, and ongoing journey towards justice and equality for African Nova Scotians and those of African descent. Today is a significant reminder of the hardships and struggles faced by these communities, but it is also a celebration of their strength, culture, and achievements. As we commemorate this day, we commit to continuously listening, learning, and working in solidarity with Indigenous and African Nova Scotian communities to foster a society rooted in respect, truth, and reconciliation. Together we can create a future that honors the histories, cultures, and rights of all people. Rowan, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to do a quick African Nova Scotian acknowledgement. Today we humbly acknowledge and celebrate the profound contributions of the people of African descent in shaping Nova Scotia's rich history and vibrant culture. From the earliest presence to the present, African Nova Scotians have been an integral founding members, leaving an enduring mark on our community for over 400 plus years. Their teachings, resilience, and unwavering strength inspire us, providing us historical stronghold that remind us of the victories achieved amidst challenges. Their labor, culture, and heartache have laid the foundation upon which we proudly stand today. In this space, we commit to honoring the rich contributions of the people of African descent, fostering a community that celebrates diversity, equity, and unity. Together, let us build upon the legacy of our ancestors, drawing strength from their experiences.
For those that are able to stand, please rise for our national anthem, as well as our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command, cartographic port, Telepeia, il se portera qua, ton histoire une épopée de brillants exploits. God qui parlait glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven rings with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicings rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. So facing the rising sun of a new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Thank you all so much.
Testing. Thank you, Keontae. Good morning, Senator Bernard, Honorable Mayor Mike Savage, councilors, guests, colleagues, and friends. ANSIO is pleased to welcome you all here today for this special Emancipation Day event. We recognize Emancipation Day because on August 1st, 1834, the Slavery Abolition Act of 1833 became law, officially ending the practice of slavery across the British Empire. And as you may know, there's some Adinkra symbols around the room today. Adinkra symbols are a collection of West African symbols that are known for their symbolism, their meaning, and their decorative features. They have decorative functions as well, but their primary use is to represent concepts related to traditional wisdom, aspects of life, and the environment. So Adinkra symbols are named after their original creator, King Adinkra, from the Bono people of Ghana. And they're highly popular and used in context to represent African cultures such as artwork, decorative items, fashion, jewelry, fabric, and media. Locally, you may have heard of Akuma. So Akuma has utilized the Adinkra symbol. It's in the shape of a heart, and the meaning loosely translates into endurance, faithfulness, and love. But we chose this year's symbol, our theme for Emancipation Day, to be Fahodie. In Akan, it loosely translates as independence. With independence comes responsibilities. It's an important symbol of freedom, independence, and emancipation in West Africa, and it's used extensively throughout the country, and we find it fitting for our event today to mark the 190th year of emancipation. The municipality is committed to addressing the anti-Black racism that still exists within our organization and the communities that we serve. To support these efforts, Regional Council endorsed the framework for developing a municipal anti-Black racism strategy and action plan, and this work is ongoing. Anti-Black racism is a form of discrimination uniquely rooted in the particular history of Black people, which is informed by those legacies of enslavement. The experience Black people have every day in this municipality and the world stems back to those histories. This year, on August 1st, Emancipation Day 2024, the municipality is pleased to be soft launching the Anti-Black Racism Grant Program to empower communities and residents of African descent and to address issues of anti-Black racism through community-led grassroots initiatives. So project grants are to support those initiatives developed and delivered at that local level. And the applicants for the grants must show how they align with the municipality's commitment to support communities in addressing those anti-Black racisms in one or more ways. So they can show a greater awareness of anti-Black racism and its impact. They can help create a greater understanding of anti-Black racism and the necessary action to address it. They can identify or bring awareness to the community organizations that are working to dismantle individual systemic and structural racism. Or they can create projects that work towards building a diverse, inclusive, and equitable municipality. So back to Fahodie. With independence comes responsibilities. And as a municipality, we are working to tangibly uphold our responsibilities to address anti-Black racism and build capacity within our communities. So today I ask you to celebrate the strength and perseverance of our Black communities and continue your education of our shared history and the importance of justice and equality. So please enjoy today's educational event as we encourage folks to take in some other Emancipation Day events taking place on August 1st. Ashe. And right now we are going to have our Honorable Mayor come in.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Bonjour à tous. Gwe Jelasi, I'm pleased to be here as we prepare for Emancipation Day. Senator Dr. Wanda Thomas Bernard, a number of our employees, I expect our CAO is probably in the room. There she is, Kathy, our CAO. Our Deputy Mayor, Kathy David-Gammon. Other councillors, perhaps as well. And I see lots of folks who come out. That's an awesome thing. It's great to be here. We remember why we're here. Emancipation Day, the long legacy of slavery that in many ways, as you indicated, haunts us still in a community that has seen systemic racism throughout our history, and not just hundreds of years ago or decades ago, but continues. And I'm proud of the work that our folks have done in diversity and inclusion, a department that didn't exist. When I became mayor, we didn't have that. We had the NCO office, but Tracy Jones Grant, I know it seems like she's been here for 50 years. She hasn't. She's done 50 years of work in a short period of time in her team. So I'm pleased to be here in my last occasion as mayor to proclaim Emancipation Day. And I'll read the proclamation in 6 languages. Proclamation Emancipation Day, August 1, 2024. Whereas for over 400 years, more than 15 million African people of all ages were the victims of the transatlantic slave trade, one of the darkest chapters in the history of humanity. African people were forcibly removed from their homes, separated from their families and communities, and alienated from their cultures and traditions. Millions of Africans died in transit, even as slavery became a lucrative venture and a source of nation building in Europe and the Americas. Whereas the Halifax Regional Municipality recognizes that people of African descent have been a part of Canadian society since the early 1600s and that their enslavement occurred on this land for centuries. Whereas on August 1st, 1834, the Slavery Abolition Act became law and effectively made slavery illegal in most British colonies, resulting in the freedom of over 800 enslaved Africans in the Caribbean and as well in Canada. Whereas the provinces of April 19, 2021 legislated August 1st as Emancipation Day. Whereas the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 68-237 proclaimed 2015 to 24 as the International Decade for People of African Descent, and designated people of African descent as a distinct group whose human rights must be promoted and protected in alignment with the pillars of recognition, justice, and development. Whereas Emancipation Day is an acknowledgement of the struggle for human rights made by freedom-seeking Canadians of African descent. This day provides an opportunity to acknowledge the legacy and history of slavery in Canada while celebrating the rich contributions that people of African descent have made to our city and our country. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Mike Savage, on behalf of our Deputy Mayor and all of Halifax Regional Council, do hereby proclaim August the 1st as Emancipation Day in the Halifax Regional Municipality, dated in Halifax, this not quite the first day of August 2024, and I encourage people to take part in the activities that will be taking place Thursday and beyond. Emancipation Day in the Halifax Regional Municipality. Thank you very much. Merci à tous. Volonia.
Thank you, Mayor Mike Savage. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's a little better. All right, so for any of you who are unaware of who the talented individual that's sang both national anthems this morning, he's Keontae Beals, and he is a multi-award-winning singer, songwriter, musician, producer, performer, author, entrepreneur from North Preston. In 2021, Keontae self-published his first children's book, which is I Am Perfectly Me, alongside his younger brother, Antonio Beals. The book sold thousands of copies and led to Keontae's company, K. Beals Entertainment, launching its publishing arm in 2022. Following the launch of Je suis parfaitement moi, an Acadian French translation of the famous English release, and French is not my specialty. So, Keontae and K. Beals Entertainment headlined the I Am Experience Tour, a Canadian school tour produced by the company and presented to thousands of kids all across Canada in provinces such as Ontario and Nova Scotia. Keontae illustrates all the I Am books as a multidisciplinary artist. Keontae also sits on the board of Make-A-Wish Canada's Nova Scotia division. Community and bringing people from all walks of life together has been a lifelong passion of his, and can we please give him another warm applause. Thank you. So it is now my honor and privilege to introduce the Honorable Wanda Thomas Bernard. So Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard is the first African Nova Scotian woman to be appointed to the Senate of Canada. Representing the province of Nova Scotia and her hometown of East Preston, Senator Bernard champions issues impacting African Canadians and people living with disabilities. She is particularly invested in human rights, employment equity, and mental health. Through her involvement in community projects and her social work career, her time at the Dalhousie School of Social Work, and now her work in the Senate, Senator Bernard has maintained a deep dedication to social justice and racial justice. Senator Bernard advocates for reparations and for historical and continued anti-Black racism impacting the lives of African Canadians. HRM, can we please give a warm welcome to Senator Wanda Bernard.
I think I'll use this so I can see. The room really filled up. When I sat up here in front of the mayor, that back area was not filled at all, so you filled it up. So thank you, Russell, for your introduction. Mayor Savage, Deputy Mayor, councilors, HRM staff, workers, leaders who do this work. Tracy, 50 years of work. I'll remember that. I will remember that. Can someone help me just get that PowerPoint up, please? Thank you. And Keontae, when Keontae arrived this morning and I said, "Oh, are you singing today?" He said, "Yes," and I thought, "Oh Lord, we are in for a treat." And you didn't disappoint. You never do. The music, the singing of the anthem. I normally sing along. I was embarrassed to do that this morning. I could not sing along because I'm tone deaf. I am going to use this mic. So, Tamar and your team, I want to say thank you for doing this. Having an educational event to mark Emancipation Day is really, really important. And so I want to thank all of you for showing up, for being here today. It's important. So I think when we first talked tomorrow, I talked about Emancipation Day from awareness to reparations, and I've changed it. I changed it, Emancipation Day from awareness to action. And I'll tell you why I've done that. When we think, and I'm sorry, I have to apologize to Riel from the Black Culture Center, who's actually live streaming, filming this. I will move around. I will move around. So, and I'll stand on my toes a bit. So apologies. In my next life, I'm coming back and I'll be as tall as Mayor Savage. I changed it because I really want to involve and invite and encourage and inspire everyone to think about actions that we can take. When we think about reparations, we're thinking about government. You know, we're thinking about corporations, we're thinking about big business, we're thinking about the things that people in leadership roles can do to bring about reparations. And I don't want to suggest that reparations aren't important. What I want to suggest, however, is that the everyday actions that everyday people take will make a lot of difference. Will probably make more of a difference than some of the reparations that we may aspire to, may want to see. So that's what I want to focus us on, is the actions. So I'll talk a bit about that. I want to set my timer because I want to leave some time for engagement as well. Okay. So I'll talk a bit about the role of a senator, because I think some people are not quite sure. My young grandson keeps telling me, "Nanny, you expect people to know what the Senate does, but people really don't." And he's 12. To talk about slavery in Canada, we've already heard of some of that this morning. The Decade for People of African Descent, just a reference. Emancipation Day and the significance of it. I will talk about reparations, and we'll talk about creating social change and what's next. That's me on the chair, my 18-month-old self, in our yard in East Preston. So for folks who know East Preston, and you know the history of our community as one of the Black loyalist communities, my ancestors have been there that long. And for me to be first in anything coming out of East Preston is a shame. And it's a statement, it's an indictment of the historic lack of opportunities that's been afforded to us. That's my older sister beside me, Valerie, the late Valerie Thomas Hodges. And the two of us and our cousin Connie Gosper White, we were the first 3 people from East Preston to go to university and graduate. That was 1969. And we've been here since the 1700s. So, you know, it speaks volumes. This picture speaks volumes. And then that's my most recent Senate photo, the official photo. So what do senators do? What do I do? Senators represent, so I represent the province of Nova Scotia, but I also represent Black Canadians by their choice. Black Canadians only. I'm often introduced across the country as, this is our senator. And so there's an expectation, you know, that I will represent Black people, and I do. We investigate, so when there are issues that need to be studied, we do that. We study issues, and we legislate. So every bill that becomes law in this country goes through the Senate, and every bill is studied. And you know how a bill becomes law. Mayor Savage served how many years as an MP? So you know this. You can speak to this. When a bill starts in the Senate, it's the green, and they're C bills. When it's, I'm sorry, in the House of Commons, they're green, they're C bills. In the Senate, they're S bills, and they're red. But every bill has to pass through both houses, and then royal assent. And the committee study piece is very, very important. And one of the things that I try to do as a senator is to make sure that I bring an Afrocentric lens to every bill. Every bill. And I bring a social justice lens to every bill. I bring an intersectional lens to every bill. And that's vitally important. And to every study. And some of the things that we study are issues that are just very, very important to us and relate to the work we're doing. Oh, yeah, okay. I'll let you set that up. Then I can stay up front here, not keep moving back. I want so I already talked about Black communities. When I joined the Senate back in 2016, I have to stop and remember, what year was that? 2016, when Trudeau came in, he changed the appointments process. And you were no longer appointed by the government in power, you had to apply. When I applied, there were 2 vacancies in Nova Scotia, and there were 2,700 applications. 2,700. Yes. I never thought that we'd have enough members of African Canadian community to have an African Canadian Senate. But we have. I'm one of the founding members of that group. We now have 7 African Canadian senators who are all part of the African Canadian Senate group. And we're all women. Okay, now some people sort of celebrate when I say that, but I don't celebrate it. You know why? Because we don't have any Black men. That's a gap. And it's a gap, and I'm on a mission now. In the last 4 years I have before mandatory retirement, one of the things I want to make sure happens is that we have a Black man in the Senate. At least one. And then Emancipation Day. I was the senator who moved that forward. You won't see my name attached to anything. That story is too long for me to tell you about it today. But just to say that I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful that we now commemorate Emancipation Day across this country. And I'm grateful to have been, to have had the opportunity to help lead the change to make that happen amongst a lot of resistance. So we've heard a bit about that transatlantic slave trade. And that's transatlantic slave trade. Tamara talked about that in her opening, so I won't dwell on that. I want to show this video though. We Are One. Let's see. I think I should show it. Yes. The video, We Are One. I have it all set up and ready to go. Some of you, I'm sure, have seen this video before. Many of you, I'm sure, have seen it before, but I want you to watch it today with a particular lens. I want you to watch it today with the lens of reparations and with the lens of center yourself in the space and think about actions that you can take. So as you're watching this today, I want you to be thinking about what can you do to make a difference today. This is 2024. What can
aunts, uncles,
nephews and nieces, grandfathers, grandparents.
we are cousins.
Many of us came hundreds of years ago.
Some of us have just arrived. We are the children of Africa.
My name is Matthew DaCosta. I am a free man. I came here with the Champlain. I am the translator between the French and the Mi'kmaq, the people of the land.
Against our will, we were bought and sold.
They baptized us in their churches, but would not set us free.
They left us in their wills and with their other possessions.
Even in death, they segregated us. We took every chance to escape to be free. After the American Revolutionary War, we were free black loyalists. Some of us, though, were not. Servants for life, they called us. We loved our families, created churches, schools. We made community. We worked hard for little wage. In sheltering, the white soldiers started a riot against us. We fled into the woods to save our lives.
At Annapolis, Rose Fortune set up her cartage business and saw to the safety of our children. Her people are here still. Promises made to us, promises broken. Poor land, few tools, harsh treatment. We wanted better for our children. So we decided to leave Nova Scotia for Sierra Leone. Our people are there still. Not all of us made that journey. Some were forced back into slavery. Others did not want to face more broken promises. Their descendants are here still. Hartley, Cromwell, Farmer, Garrett, Reddick.
On this isle too we fought for freedom, believed the promises. We are the Maroons, sent here in exile, put to work on this fort. Soon, we too left for Sierra Leone. We were promised freedom if we answer the call to stand with the king in this battle. We number 3,000 at New York, ready to sail to Nova Scotia.
You're walking up from me. No, now you're walking up from me. Many a thousand gone.
We suffered in those early years, sickness, starvation, harsh attitudes against us.
Yet we survived when they thought we would not. We made a way out of no way. Planted gardens, found food in the forests and lakes, sold our goods at market. We moved throughout, making communities. We worked for ourselves, and we worked for others.
We fought for freedom abroad. We fought for freedom at home.
We created new churches. Pushed hard to educate our children. Set up our own institutions. Against all odds, against mighty barriers, we have survived and thrived, but not without pain, never without struggle.
The generations of hard work, determination, faith, laughter, always with hope for a better tomorrow.
Always seeking a brighter day for our children.
Our heritage, our pathway to tomorrow.
From Birchtown to Botswana,
From Sydney to Somalia,
from Halifax to Freetown.
the African diaspora lives here.
hear that song, of course, I want to dance. But I have myself back today. The film was written and produced by Dr. Sylvia Hamilton and narrated by Dr. Sylvia and Dr. David Woods. As you watched that, I hope you thought about the past. And one of the things that's really important, and we won't have time to go into a deep discussion about it, but one of the things that's really important about remembering the past, and why it's important for us to remember the past, is that the past laid the foundation for the present. The present day anti-Black racism that we're experiencing is very much rooted in the past. And although today marks 190 years, it'll be Thursday, marks 190 years since the abolition of enslavement of our people, it hasn't meant real freedom. It hasn't resulted in real freedom. And we see the impact of the segregation, the impact of the enslavement, the mental enslavement, the impact of the lack of opportunities, the impact of the negative stereotyping. And it has an impact. It has an impact on individuals and whole communities. And we see that impact show up in so many different ways. And in fact, I've been trying to find a way to talk about what happened in Africville just in the past weekend. I'm sure there are many heavy hearts about Africville. Mine certainly is. When I think about, what happened in Africville with the shooting, we don't know who the shooters were. But one of the things that we do know is that the resilience of the people of Africville, the determination, some people stayed in the park, they refused to be chased out of the park, the resilience of the people, the determination, the resistance, the determination, and I think that's what I'm choosing to focus my energy on. Thinking about how people are just determined to keep going. There will be a 42nd annual reunion next year, rest assured. My guess is it'll be bigger than ever, because people are refusing to allow the violence of a few to impact the whole. But we need to understand the violence. We need to understand that how violence is really rooted in our society, how violence is rooted in this history. And despite the survival, despite the resilience, despite the strength that we have, that things are still happening to us, with us, around us, against us. Things are still happening. So although we mark 190 years of freedom, it isn't real freedom. It really isn't freedom. I also want to just pause here and just to remind all of us that the enslavement of indigenous people happened as well. It wasn't a part of the transatlantic slave trade, but was certainly the indigenous people were also enslaved as part of that slave industry. We were industry. We were industry. We helped build this, all of these places that we were taken to. Not immigrated, but taken to. The three pillars of the decade, recognition, justice, and development, the decade officially ends at the end of this year. Canada has signed on for another 3 years because we were late signing on. I think Nova Scotia may do the same. In fact, this could be an invitation to Nova Scotia to do the same. The work isn't done. The United Nations has created a permanent forum for people of African descent because the work isn't done. You can't undo hundreds of years of physical and mental enslavement and marginalization in 10 years. So we know the work continues. And so we know we're marking, we know why we're marking the day. We mark the day because it was the official Abolition Act. So we mark the day. The official recognition in Ontario has been happening since 2008. And of course, as you know, in Nova Scotia and the rest of Canada, it was in 2021. And so why do we mark Emancipation Day? Why do we see this as important? When I introduced the bill to have Emancipation Day recognized, one of the criticisms from the official opposition in the Senate was, we already have too many days that we celebrate. And we can't afford to have another holiday. So Emancipation Day is not a holiday. Just in the weeks leading up to Emancipation Day, so many people have been asking me that very question. Why isn't it a holiday? Why do we celebrate? And I said, well, we don't really celebrate, we commemorate. When we commemorate Emancipation Day, it's about acknowledging that past. It's acknowledging the past. It's helping to create more understanding and appreciation and awareness. But as I was saying, I want to focus on this last point here, an opportunity for all Canadians to take meaningful action. And that's where I want to really spend some time with you today, sort of thinking about actions. I want you to be thinking about actions you can take. These can be actions you can take at a personal level. We all have lives outside of work, or we try to. But when you work 50 years, it's harder, right, Tracy? But we have personal lives. So what changes can you bring about in your personal life? Professionally, you're all working in some capacity with HRM. You have the integration office, NGO office. But that office can't do all the work. That office just leads the work. So much is up to what you do in your individual workplaces, in your individual spaces. You know, one of the things I heard when Irvin Carvery, who's the president of the African Genealogy Society, in one of his interviews about the shooting, he said he was really pleased with the way the police handled things. And I thought, that's good news. That the police went into that space in a way that, in my language, in social work, I would call culturally responsive. And that's not the history of our relationship with Halifax Police. But that sounds to me like a change in time. That sounds to me like an actions that those officers who responded, they took actions that were very meaningful to the community, that recognized the sacred space they were entering and establishing a crime scene, but doing that in a way. So when I think about actions, so the personal, the professional, and then think about the political. There's my timer, so I gave myself 30 minutes. Can I take a few more? Yes? Okay. How long are we going?
Yeah, you have time.
Yeah, okay, I have time, yeah. I have time, that's all I need to hear, I have time.
You have some, no.
So I was already on the slide. So the political level, we're about to see changes in municipal politics. I don't know who's going to replace Mayor Savage, but he's told us that he's leaving, he's had enough. He's done a lot.
50 years.
He's done his 50 years. He's done his 50 years. Thank you, Mayor Savage, for your leadership, especially your leadership on these issues. It's been appreciated. But we all have a role to play politically because we want to make sure, that the direction is continued. And so those are questions you can ask the candidates who are running. We all have a role to play politically. Not all run for office, but talk to the people who are running. Have the critical conversations with them. Engage in the conversations with them about how they see these issues and where they stand on particular issues. And also the work of the African Nova Scotian Affairs Integration Office. And then policy. How many of you work with policy every day? In working with policy, so it's developing policy and then implementing policy. But if you bring a lens of anti-Black racism to that work, if you bring a lens of social justice to that work, it makes the work we're doing in policy very different. And who controls that? We do. Not just the people who are setting the policy, but we all have a role to play in this. I still do a little bit of teaching, and one of the courses I teach is a course on social policy. And this year, I can't never forget the student saying, I found myself in my work always writing requests to my supervisors for exemptions to the policies. And she said, it wasn't until I heard your first 3 lectures that I realized maybe the policy's the problem. Like sometimes we don't think about that, right? We're writing exceptions for the policies, but the policy is the problem. But we don't think about that because we got so busy in our day-to-day work. We become so busy in making sure we're following the policy that we may not recognize when the policy may be a problem. And a lot of the policies, quite frankly, aren't developed with that social justice lens in mind, with that intersectional lens in mind. They're not. And so how do we disrupt that? I said I will talk briefly about reparations. And so, the reparations are important. When the British abolished slavery in all of its colonies, the British compensated the slave owners. Not the people who were enslaved, but the slave owners. And the British people paid for that. I don't even think they knew. They were paying for that through their taxes. There's never been formal reparations to African people. So reparations are important. But reparations also mean a whole lot more. So it's about resources, it's about opportunities, it's about acknowledging the harm of enslavement. Reparations means all of those things. And so when I think about reparations and the need for us to look at what's going on today, that's where I want us to sort of think about the actions we can take. We know we have to build better futures for our children and our children's children. We know we have to do that. We have a responsibility to do that. And so how do we do that? How do we do that? What kind of supports do we need to do that? So excited to hear about your August 1st soft launch of the Anti-Black Racism Grants Program. Like, I think when you get in community involved and engaged in actions that they can take to make a difference, and when you provide the kind of resources, we may not be using the language of reparations, but guess what? I'm going to put a reparation stamp on that. Reparations, those are reparations. And I don't know why we're so afraid to use the language of reparations. Maybe there's a worry that we'll be greedy and capitalists and ask for more. You were supposed to laugh at that. That was meant to be a joke. but no one. Russell says you're afraid to laugh. So one of the things that I think is really important when we do this work, it's tough work. It is tough work. And this work takes a toll. It takes a toll on us emotionally. It takes a toll on us physically. And one of the things we don't spend enough time doing, I think, is not just practicing self-care. We don't talk enough about self-care and the importance, but people doing this work, believe me, need self-care. Absolutely. So how can you become a change maker, a change leader? Sometimes people see leaders as the people in official positions, like the mayor, the deputy mayor, and so on and so on. But we're all leaders. We all have leadership within us. We're all leading, even if we're just leading in our own lives. We're leading. So we need to see our leadership potential. We need to see ourselves as leaders, and we need to see ourselves as change makers. And so how do we do that? We do that by asking questions. Asking questions is so important. We do it by being creative. You know, if we keep doing the same old things and expecting the different results, you know, I don't need to finish that, right? Be creative. When I talk to young people, I often say, you know, how many of you on social media? They all are. I haven't met a young person who isn't in some way connected with social media. And then I say, so what do you put on it? How do you use it? Let's take back control of social media, right? Use social media for good. There's a lot of good we can do with social media. But we let the bad actors take it over. And we gobble it up like sponges. Let's use social media for social change. Let's do that. Use your voice, use your talents, and get involved in your community. When I think about community action and community change and community leadership, there's so much that we can do. I live in East Preston, and when I'm traveling to and from Ottawa, I used to take taxis from the airport. You know, I'd get in late on a Thursday night usually, at midnight. The flight's late, it's even later. You get a taxi driver, you get in the car, and they say, where to, ma'am? And I say, I'm going to East Preston. You can almost hear their heart. They don't want to go to East Preston. They've heard so many negative stereotypes about East Preston, they don't want to take me there. And it was the night in the middle of February when the driver stopped at the top of my driveway, which is very long, and said, I'm going to let you all here because I don't think I can get out if I go down there. Now, it wasn't snowing. There was no storm. My driveway was cleared. But he was afraid if he got down into the deep of the driveway in Preston, that something bad was going to happen to him. Anyway, and I had 2 suitcases that night. I said, listen, there's no way I'm walking down there with these bags. So if you want to be paid, you will take me down there, and yes, you will get out. And there's actually a place where you can turn around. You don't even have to back out. And I thought, you know, the stress. Here I am traveling to and from Ottawa every week, working for the country. And the stress of not knowing if I'm going to get a driver who will at least treat me with respect and take me all the way to my door. It's ridiculous. So we tend to have so much negative stereotyping about some of our communities, and especially our Black communities. So let's do what we can do to change that. Get involved. So we won't do small group, but I'll just throw that question out, and I want everyone to think about this. If you're here from your office, maybe you can send a note to the NCO office. What's one thing that you can do to create change? I want everyone to think about one thing that you can do. Send a message to your team leader, your supervisor, your colleagues, your co-workers. What's one thing that you can do to create social change? Why is it important to recognize Emancipation Day? That's a conversation I want you to have with people in your family. What does Emancipation Day mean to you personally? And what does Emancipation Day mean to the HRM? So we've heard that, your leadership, even doing this session and highlighting the other things that are happening around Emancipation Day. So we've got number 3 answered. But what about 1 and 2? Some activities, there's lots going on. Are you going to share a list of something? Okay, so I won't do that. So what's next? I think the most important things that we can do, we can reflect. So reflect on the session today. Reflect on some of what you've heard today. Reflect on the film, the short film. Reflect on the shooting in Africa. Reflect on the importance of Emancipation Day. We can educate, talk to others, engage others in conversation. Those of you who are parents or aunties or uncles or you have siblings and neighbors, have the conversation. Engage. And we won't have a Q&A. I don't think we have time. Thank you so much. The boss has said we can take a few questions.
Come on, don't be shy. I'm going to pick on people, so somebody should volunteer.
Volunteer or be voluntold?
All right, I'm going to pick on Mayor Savage.
Well, you asked me a question.
Oh, go for it, Russ.
So what is your message to new council and the next mayor?
Good luck. Anybody here running for council in the room? What I always tell people is it's the greatest job in the world, but you have to connect with people. So I think what I would say specifically around this is the most important message is I think it's important to say we don't celebrate Emancipation Day because it didn't lead really to emancipation. What it did do was it acknowledged that this was wrong. And your point about compensating the slave owners, the people owners, and not the people who were owned is a good point. So I think the message, the only thing I would say, there's a lot of work to do. I'm proud of, when I came to the city, and not because of me, but because of the city, I think we had 1 person in the NCO office. I think we had Sylvia, I think that was what we had. And today we have a number of people, and I think there's a lot of work that we all need to do, and it has to be inculcated through our entire workforce. And we still hear about cases of racism in the workforce. Let's not kid ourselves, that happens. And so I think it's the same thing as many other cases of injustice. It's important to believe. It's important to believe the person who brings those and not to push them under the rug. And so there's a lot of leaders here who I know do that on a regular basis. And I appreciate the leadership that I've seen in the workforce of HRM, and we have to be very vigilant to continue it. And my last thought was thank you to Senator and Keontae, my man. You still got it. You're awful old, but you still got it.
Anyone else courageous enough to ask a question?
Or make a comment.
I'm an immigrant from the U.S. I've lived in Nova Scotia for 20 years or so. When I moved here, it was very interesting to see the difference between how racism is here and versus the U.S. In the U.S., it's very blatant and in your face. And here it's hidden behind polite smiles. curious if the same type of action, and I realize I could probably Google this, but you will likely know, the same action for Emancipation Day, does that exist in the U.S.? And does the pending election of our first U.S. female president have any impact on Canadian politics?
Well, of course, we're so connected to our neighbors to the south, so the pending election, regardless of who wins, will have a huge impact, no matter who wins. In the U.S., they celebrate Juneteenth, right? And they celebrate Juneteenth because it was like a year later, in June, before some African Americans knew that the abolition of slavery and enslavement had happened. So that's why they celebrate Juneteenth. And the U.S. ambassador to Canada actually has an event every year to recognize Juneteenth in Canada. So in the U.S., Juneteenth, I think President Biden made it a holiday. It is a holiday. And so they celebrate it. And the ambassador and his team do an event in Canada now, in Ottawa, to mark the day. But it's a holiday. We didn't try to make this a holiday because we knew that would lead to more resistance. And we were more interested in having the day acknowledged, not so much in terms of making it a holiday.
Just got another question.
Although, in recognizing that being a change maker while operating within systems of oppression, that's hard, heavy work, I'm curious to know what self-care you've practiced or tools that you've utilized to maintain longevity in this work.
It's a great question.
So I literally have been doing this for 50 years. In real time, 50 years. So what do? I wish someone had talked to me about self-care when I was younger. However, in my older years, my self-care consists of, I'm a yoga practice. I do yoga, I do daily yoga. Oh my goodness. I do it in the morning and at night. It is one of the best things that I was ever introduced to. And I was introduced to it by my daughter. And so the daily yoga is something that really helps me. And I walk a lot. I have hip issues and knee issues and back issues, and I walk. So it's like, I wish I had walked more when I didn't have these issues, but I walk now and I love it. I enjoy the walk. And music, gospel music and spirituality. I have a practice where I start every day with one of my favorite gospel songs, and I sing in the bathroom. I won't sing anywhere else. I wouldn't sing in public. But I sing in the bathroom, and I try to start every day with some joy. And I try to find joy every day in the midst of sometimes really hard stuff. But I try to find joy every day. I try to have what I call a deep belly laugh every day. You know what a deep belly laugh is? Something that, you want to just, you don't think you can stop laughing. And some days I don't have to work hard to find something to have a deep belly laugh about because, it's better than TV. Life can be better than TV. But I try to do that every day. So those are the things that sustain me. And I have an amazing family. I live with my daughter and son-in-law and my husband. We've been married 49 years, and we still talk about how we can make each other laugh. And our 2 grandsons. So we have this multi-generational household. I'll tell you, as a person who's aging, living with 2 teenagers keeps you pretty young. You have to do lots to keep up with them. So I try to do all of that, and it's amazing. In fact, just yesterday I was walking with the 2 12-year-old who's about to turn 13, but he's been acting like a 14-year-old for 2 years. We were walking, I'm the president of this organization we have called the Africadian Empowerment Academy. So we were just out for a walk, and yesterday, he said, Nanny, have you ever thought about maybe having the Africadian Empowerment Academy become a college? And I thought, well, no, I haven't. You know, what makes you think that's a good idea? Well, he said, Nanny, with all the stuff that you do, that they do there, I think it should be its own college. He's 12 years old. And he's on the autism spectrum. Very perceptive. So I'll have that conversation with my board.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you for that question. I really appreciate the opportunity to reflect and share. And just to let you know, these are things that work for me.
Thank you for sharing. I have a question. I think the conversation around changing or revising policies is really important, but can feel a bit overwhelming. And you said you bring an Afrocentric lens to different bills going to the legislature. Are you able to share with us a specific example of something that you changed or revised or added to make a policy better?
Yes. Well, let's talk about the Disability Benefits Act. Now, first of all, let me say this. I believe that the work we did on that bill made it better. I have to say the end result in terms of what the benefit is an insult, so I'm not happy with that. But I am happy with the process. So one of the things that I noticed with that bill, I sit on the Senate Social Affairs Committee, and that committee studies a lot of these bills that have a social component. And that bill came to our committee. And when that bill was coming to our committee, one of the things that I noticed was that in the House of Commons, the only non-white voice they heard from was an Indigenous group in BC. And most of the speakers, the witnesses that were called were from a lot of organizations, and most of the organizations had white male-identifying leaders who came and witnessed to the House of Commons. So when the bill came to us, I thought, okay, I think they may be missing some perspectives. So we brought in Dawn, the Disabled Women's Network. They didn't speak to the House of Commons Committee, but they came and they spoke at the Senate Committee. And we also brought in the group, ASHE, Black Canadians, Community Foundation for Black Canadians with Disabilities. Most people had never heard of it. They're the only group in the country who's dealing specifically with that intersection of race and disability. And we had them come and they were witnesses. And I would say that, so what I don't want the white men in the room to feel is that I'm saying your voice doesn't matter. That's not don't misinterpret what I'm saying here. Your voice certainly does matter, and it's important, but it's not the only voice on the issues. And so with that bill, we were able to make, we made 7 amendments to the bill to make it better. So 7 policy changes, if you will. And 6 of them were accepted by the House of Commons. And when that bill came to us, everyone, including the minister who was the sponsor of the bill, was saying, don't make any amendments because you'll slow the bill down. So imagine if we had just listened to that and rolled over those 6 amendments that we made to make the bill better, to make the bill have a more intersectional kind of focus. That wouldn't have happened. So that's one example of how we, bringing that lens, that Afrocentric, that intersectional lens to the work, makes a difference. That's the one that jumps out for me in the past year. But there are more, there are things that happen almost every day when I think about it.
You're up next, right?
Thank you.
I'm going to do some thank yous, and I'm just going to say a few words. So as we know, we're 190 years of emancipation, and the theme being with independence comes responsibilities. And I think as a regional municipality and a staff working in the municipality, this is something we really need to keep in mind. Independence comes with responsibilities. So as a municipality, what are our responsibilities? Not just solely to thinking about Emancipation Day, but what are our responsibilities when we think about how we work with and in the African Nova Scotian communities? Not only those communities external to us, but also our communities internal. We have responsibilities. When I was thinking about what Senator Wanda was saying, and I'm sitting here recognizing that it's in July, our children are not being taught this in school because school's out in July. So I ask each and every one of you who have children, cousins, nieces, grandchildren, to share about Emancipation Day so that those children become more informed. And the more informed we are as a society, the better we are as a society. So share the stories, share your learnings, share what you've heard today. Think about your actions. Think about it through a socially conscious lens. When I was hearing what Senator Bernard was saying about what we need to do to be a change maker and a leader, and Senator Bernard talked about get involved in your communities, I said and added as a note to myself, not just your communities, our communities. Don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone into a community that you may not have been engaged with before. And in particular, as we think about Emancipation Day and all that will be happening, think about how are you stepping into and with the African Nova Scotian community. This is important. Senator Bernard also talked about policies. And we asked the mayor what would he say to those who are running. But I say to you as HRM employees, as my co-workers and friends, think about who we are electing to our council. Don't be afraid to ask those questions on how people are engaging with our diverse communities. And again, today we're speaking specifically about our African Nova Scotian communities. This city is growing, it's evolving, but we still have communities that are being left behind, communities that have been here for generations, our Indigenous communities, our African Nova Scotian communities. We are still in 2024 talking about the first. That is a very hard thing to say and to think about. So as we think about our government going forward, let's not keep thinking about the first. Let's think about how we're going to make change, what voices we want to have at the table. And if those voices can't be at the table, let's think about how we engage those voices as part of the conversations that we're having. So I want to thank those who made today so important and so special. So I'm going to start with Senator Bernard, who, believe it or not, has actually known me for 50 years. Who has been a part of my life for 50 years. Senator Bernard, as always, your words just bring so much into the space. We honor what you do, not only for the African Nova Scotian community, but for that voice that you bring to the Senate. And the most wonderful piece about this, as a senator, you're approachable. You don't just go and do your work, you come home and you bring that home for us and you care for us and you share with us and you take our pieces back to the Senate. So when asked, how do you put that lens on the work that you do, you hear us, and that makes a difference. So Senator Bernard, we thank you for all that you brought today. I also want working with you, Mr. Mayor, for the past 10 years, challenged you, and saw that you have shown your commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and in particular our work with and in the African Nova Scotian community. Thank you. Thank you for your time and your commitment. You said that this was your last event. I think that you still have a few more to do before summer's over and elections happen, so that's not cut short.
Except for Thursday.
Except for Thursday. But thank you again. It is leadership that brings change, and in our organization, we really look to our leaders to help make that change. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for helping to lead that. So like you, Senator Wanda, I usually like to sing to the Negro National Anthem. I mean, my heart just opens up when I hear that. Keontae, you took us someplace else. And I'm telling you, it was a singing of both anthems that brought chills. And we thank you for coming and showing up every time that we ask you to. Thank you. New to our team, and I'm including you as part of our team, Riel Williams, who is our videographer for today. Riel, thank you for taking the time out to record our event this morning. We really appreciate it, so thank you for being here. As always, we get support from our Office of Diversity and Inclusion, and Jared again was able to join us this morning to bring not only just a land acknowledgement, but a history lesson. I think if we heard and listened to what Jared said, we understand that there is not a complete separation between our first communities, our Mi'kmaq communities, and our African Nova Scotian communities. We, in some cases, in some parts of this province, would not have survived if it had not been for our First Peoples. Jared, thank you. So I also want to close by thanking our catering by Robin Sweets, and a special treat that we had. Septimus, our drummer, I'm not sure if they're still in the room, but thank you for drumming and bringing the heartbeat of the motherland into this space. Okay. I want to close with just saying this, that today is the 30th, and so Emancipation Day is August the 1st. There are many events happening. I would encourage you to go to the Black Cultural Center's website. You'll be able to see what's happening. And just briefly, there's events happening at Citadel Hill, at the Canadian Museum of Immigration, and at the Black Cultural Center, but also thinking about stepping out of comfort zones and into community. There's events happening at Grant Creighton Junior High, where there'll be an Emancipation Day run, and then from 11 to 3, a community event with vendors and activities for the children. So again, think about coming out and celebrating with us and recognizing and acknowledging Emancipation Day. Finally, I'd like to thank the team of ANSIO, our African Nova Scotian Affairs Integration Office, who have worked diligently on this event, even all the way from Antigua, where they were not supposed to be on their computer, but they were. I'd like to thank Russell Brooks, Jasmine Ski, and Tamar Pryor Brown for their work on this event. So, again, we talk about this not as a celebration, but as a commemoration and an acknowledgement. I encourage you to learn more about Emancipation Day, but not only keep it to yourself, share it. Share it so that we don't lose this rich history that we know is part of who we are as people of African descent in Nova Scotia, but as Nova Scotians as a whole. I invite you to socialize afterwards. There are some sweets at the table. Senator Bernard will be around for a few minutes, and thank you all for showing up.